Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people that want the best info, but just don't have the time. Get your podcast fix with the Cliff Notes versions of your favorite podcasts. No fluff, just the actionable golden nuggets. Having this much knowledge at your fingertips should be downright illegal. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with Satori Prime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman. So if you haven't checked out part one, I think part two probably will be very, very out of context. So just make sure you go back one podcast. I did an interview with a very, very interesting person. His name is Peter Lisoskie, and we spoke about the story selling blueprint, which is a product he's about to launch, about how to structure your stories so that you plug into someone else's neuronal patterns in their brain and basically connect with them. And by doing so, you can actually have an incredibly positive effect on them taking action, strategic, powerful action in their lives. And he showed us the example of this by taking someone through what Joseph Campbell dubbed the hero's journey and how you actually do that. So again, we got up to about halfway through that process in part one. In part two, here are some of the things we're going to cover. We're going to look at what Princeton did a study on and dubbed the Vulcan mind melt technology, which is pretty cool. We're also going to talk about how to take someone into their deepest, darkest inner cave and then have them come out the hero, elixir in hand, and feeling like you absolutely changed their lives. So listen closely. This is very, very dense information, but I've said this before and I'll say it again. In the next 5 years, it is not going to be who can market better than the other person. It will be who can share their story and their perspective more clearly and more passionately than anyone else. So if nothing else, these are two podcasts that you want to go back to. And at the end of this podcast, Peter actually offers for you guys to join his beta version of the story selling blueprint. So make sure you go check out the resource guide at the end of this for the link on how to join that. It's at a discount and it's a live course. So just throwing that out there. All right. Enjoy part two, everyone, and have an amazing, amazing rest of your day.
Here's what happens now is this whole transformation story, it builds a massive pull of desire where they're going, okay, I'm really starting to think I could pull this off. Okay. But here's the thing, especially with higher priced products. Now, when I'm talking about, when you're getting up over $1,000 to $2,000, or, some of the products that you have, which are very good, but they're multi-thousand, people are going, okay, but wait a second. They're still having these what if battles, right?
Sure.
So yeah, they do. So they have to do what's calling walking into the innermost cave. Okay. Now I want to point something out just very quickly to everybody listening here. We call this the hero's journey, but you have to remember your prospect is not a hero yet until they cross the threshold to the unknown. Why? Because the definition of a hero is facing the unknown of fear and acting in spite of it. When they're in their ordinary world, they're not a hero yet. They're just an ordinary person. But once they get into that unknown with you and you start walking them through, you're the herald, the mentor, the wizard. Now you're taking them on a journey and they are a hero. Yeah. Because they're all their fears.
I say this line my brother and I use all the time, and people come to us and they're like, well, I want this result and this result. And I tell them, in order to get that result, you're going to have to be someone that you've never been before. And it kind of throws them off a little bit. And I'm like, do you know how I know that? And they're like, no. I say, because you don't have that result already. If you were being that person, you would have already had that result. So there's clearly some, like the hero's journey, clearly something that you're going to have to go through. And for a lot of people, like especially around money, they'll be like, well, I don't have money. And I just did a podcast about this. I think the last one that was released was it, where if that's your excuse that stopped you in everything in life, not just this thing. It stopped you from going to the school of your dreams, marrying the woman of your dreams, going to the restaurant, the vacation, the business opportunity, the investment. It's the same, big butt that's been following you around. And so what I found is really impactful for people is to have them realize what that conversation, what that thing, whether it's I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough money, I don't have time, what it's already cost them so far in life. So once they get that, then they can make the choice whether they really want to jump in or not, because it's like, well, you've lived 40 years and this is what it's cost you. Are you willing to live the next 40 with that same ball and chain, or are you like ready to do something about it? And, most people are definitely at least willing to jump a little from that, because they're like, well, yeah, I don't want that for the rest of my time. So that's really effective.
Point. That is a very, very good point you make, Ilan. And here's the thing. You guys got to remember, and what Ilan is speaking to you about is that you have multiple hero journeys going on at any given time in your life. That's one where you have a money hero's journey. You may have just gotten a divorce and you have a divorce hero's journey, or, God forbid your child died. You have a death in the family hero's journey. You've got a business hero's journey. See, these are all of these known to unknown conditions. Now, going back to, addressing your point, one of the things we do in the workshop before we even start these stories is, and you've heard this term before, angel avatars. I call it attract the angels, repel the devils, right?
Yeah.
And I have there's 7 questions that I teach. These are the things you have to write down and answer about your ideal customer, or what we call your angel avatar.
Yeah.
Equally important is to write down who your devils are, because you got to know what you stand for and what you don't stand for.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that I have in there is exactly the one you brought up, Ilan, which is, hey, what is this going to cost me if I don't do this? It's very, very important to know, here's what it's going to cost me if I do it, but here's what it's going to cost me if I don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's actually even more important than what it's going to cost me if I do it.
Yeah, I think that question, when someone gets it internally, it's very, very powerful, because that's what kind of creates that urgency. Like when his aunt and uncle died, that was that moment. Because before that, there was no urgency. There was no anything that he had to deal with. But as soon as that happened, it was like, I can put all that other shit aside and I'm just going to handle this, because now there's that motivation. So sometimes I think that's really powerful.
Just not to go too far off the side, but just so everybody, to get the full rich flavor of this whole thing. And that is, there's different common character themes. So revenge is one. That creates sense of urgency. There is loss and redemption. This could be an example like, I had this great business like Donald Trump. It went bankrupt. I'm going to come back bigger, badder than I was before. There's rags to riches. I came from the projects. I made something of myself. See, there is there's underdog, right? I'm the underdog, right? Everybody loves an underdog, so I'm going to go do this. So I have these set of character themes that I talk about, and that's one thing is you have to identify that person's character theme while you're telling these stories, because again, why? Because they can relate to it internally in their internal dialogue and core desires. They know if they're an underdog. They know if they're rags to riches. They know if they had some bad event that happened, which happened to millions of people in this last recession. We got a lot of loss and redemption out there. And you guys can speak to this, and people will listen to you if you do it in stories, not in selling, right? Because stories don't create that adversarial relationship. Brilliant. All right. So let's go back now to Luke Skywalker and Star Wars, and now we're in the innermost cave, right? So this innermost cave is the place where they have to go in alone. Okay? You and I are heralds. All the people that are listening out there, you're heralds and mentors, but you can't go in the innermost cave with that person. Only that person can. Now, here's the thing. This is where they have to face their biggest doubts and fears, and they have to fight it like a gladiator and conquer it. It is the last dangerous place a prospect is before they – now I want to hope everybody hears this very carefully. Before they take mental purchase possession of your product, Because guys, we already know by neuroscience and by storytelling and by my own personal experience, people take possession of your product or service mentally before they take possession of it physically. It's already made up. Okay. So here's what happens. They're going into this innermost cave. And so now in neuroscience, this is where a lot of times the rational part, the neocortex part of the brain comes in, right? We externally look for what, Ilan? We look for facts and figures and conversations and talking to our other, mentors, advisors, or family and friends. And, all the while we're processing this, but we are still fighting this internal battle alone. Okay. But it's important as the herald and the mentor that you've done your job to tell these stories, to make that trust connection, to build likability, because they're also looking at that. Because you know as well as I do, and everybody listening, the old adage of people will buy from people they like, know, and trust. If they don't like you, I don't care what story you tell them.
Yeah.
You're not selling them anything.
Yep.
Okay. So you have to, guys, you got to have done your work through this. This is why the story selling is a formula. There's a process to this, and you take them through these different stories along the path of the hero's journey. Okay. So they're looking for reasons why, relating. Now, they may go back to social proof here, but ultimately the decision comes from their own internal understanding and ability to say, yes, I can get this result. Okay. They have to know deep down inside that if they put up that money, that yes, they follow that formula, and yes, they can get that result.
Yeah.
Okay. Then they'll take mental possession. Now, in Star Wars, let's go back to Luke. Luke, what? After he gets his training, he heads over to the Death Star, right? He goes into the Death Star, and he's searching around. He finds Princess Leia, and there's Han Solo and the Wookiee and all that. And what happens? Then there's a big gunfight. They have to jump into the trash bin, right? And they're down there in the trash bin. That's the innermost cave. It's the most badass place in the most badass place, right? So they're sitting in this trash bin. And what happens? The walls start going, and they're coming in. Now, to make matters worse, on Luke's fight in the innermost cave, what happens? He sees this big, sea serpent leg, and what happens? He gets pulled down under the water. And if you remember in the movie, we're at the edge of our seat going, oh, man, I think he's dead, right? And so this is the death fight, okay, to the end. And I talk about this. This is the next thing. We call this the death fight of the gladiator. This is the metaphoric battle of all your doubts and fears versus what you want as a result in your core desire. Okay. And so the thing is what happens? All of a sudden, Luke pops up, gasping for air. They stop the trash compactor, and he lives. Okay. So he went into the innermost cave. He fought the biggest demon that they could put in there, and he conquered it. Okay, so that's what George Lucas did in Star Wars. Is he's talking about the innermost cave within that trash compactor.
Yeah.
It's the darkest, blackest waters. There's no light in there. It is the epitome of the innermost cave. Okay, so he has this battle, and this is in story selling. What we do is we have this we call it the death fight of the gladiator to seize the sword, and seizing the sword is buying your product, Ilan. This is the elixir. It's the elevated knowledge that's going to get them to this new place, right? Mm-hmm. So they go through, and this is where the next story happens. I call this the ownership blueprint story, okay? So what it does is you tell a story about how everything ties together to produce the result that person wants that's connected with your product or service. Okay. Now, you know who Jeff Walker is with the product launch formula. If you look at what all these guys are doing with their pre-launch, their product launches, they're going through a very similar format with their 3 video pre-launch, right? Yeah. Hero story, transformation story, ownership blueprint story. The problem is that most people are going, well, how in the heck do I create these stories, right? So this is what we teach is you can launch anything you want, online or offline. You can have any kind of business you want, but you got to know how to tell the right stories at the right time as we go through this hero's journey. Okay. So this ownership blueprint story, it inspires that buying because here's the thing I've learned throughout the years that I've done selling, okay, and I've been at this for a lot of years, is that you can't sell anything to anybody. You can create an environment for people to buy.
Yeah.
That's all there is, okay? And that's what this thing does. So when I say seizing the story, they're watching the blueprint, they're putting all the pieces together. Their core desire is building and building to the point where they're saying, you know what, I do not have these fears anymore. I know I can do this. And they do what's called seize the sword. Okay. Now, in that seizing the sword, in this one, in the seizing the sword, this is when Luke comes out of the water. He's got his lightsaber. He's now conquered. He's vanquished the fear and doubt that was in that trash compactor. Okay. And the key thing to take away here is the people who come out of the cave who have seized the sword, it's not what that guy told me. It's not what the social community told me. It's what I told myself. Yes, I can do this.
Yeah.
Remember that, back to that highest level of influence.
Yep.
Okay. So now after that, then the last thing that can occur is what we call the road back. Okay. So the road back is what in selling is commonly termed as buyer's remorse. Okay, so this is a situation where they came back, they vanquished, but all of a sudden there's this little bit of doubt that starts seeping
creeping
in.
Back in.
Oh, well, maybe I made the wrong choice, right? So our ability to tell stories in the right sequence is going to lower the number of people who have buyer's remorse or this road back. So we call this, they're in the woods. We got to get them out of the woods, okay? So we're going to help them with social proof, mental triggers. We can use now, here's something that I want to share with you and all your listening audience too. The reason why, now social proof will still be around for a while, and here's why. I talk about this in the Croc Brain, there's 4 ego filters, okay?
Yeah.
One of them is connection, okay? We want to be part of a group. Why? Because way back in the caveman days, if we weren't part of a group, we were dead. Yeah. So we still want to be part of a group or a community. No matter what kind of maverick you are, you still look to that because that's an ego filter. So by doing community or social proof, you're going, come on, it's okay. You can get the same results these other people have. It's all good. But most importantly, what it tells them is we're here for you just in case you stumble. There's a lot of people just like you that's part of the group, part of the herd. Okay. And so all of that stuff helps them to get out of the woods and not, to remove the buyer's remorse. Now, the other thing for you guys that are listening is another thing that will cause buyer's remorse is if you don't deliver the results that you promised in a timely fashion.
Damn right.
Then I'm immediately going to go, right? If you don't get that email out right away, they're going, well, wait a second. Now, is this guy for real or what's going on here, right? So you got to deliver it in a timely fashion because that will help eliminate any kind of doubt or remorse that they made the wrong decision. Okay?
Yeah, and I just want to add one other thing to that is that like all these strategies that we're talking about, and the reason Guy and I teach you this, the reason we're bringing on people like Peter is this only works if you have integrity in your business. If you're actually delivering on your product, this is all to get people excited about you, brand you, your product, your service, etc. This will not create a business if your product sucks or if you can't deliver on the promise. And I see a lot of people go through this whole rigmarole about learning how to do proper Facebook marketing and learning how to create all these video sales letters and all that stuff. And at the end of the day, their product sucks. And I just know they're not going to deliver on what they're trying to sell. And then all this falls apart. So I never heard that road back, but that's exactly where this whole piece falls. And then they blame everything else. They blame the marketing. They blame the mess. I'm like, no, you just didn't deliver. And that's the plain and simple.
Ilan, that's a great point you bring up. And that's why if you're seeing this, how simple but powerful it is. But you can't hide. If you're not delivering with integrity and results, and you take these people through their hero's journey, because we're not dealing, guys, listen, you're dealing with really smart human beings.
Yeah.
They're going to sniff you out in a second. And the thing is that if you follow this formula, but you don't deliver on the goods, they're going to have this road back. They're going to go back in the woods and go, forget it. I want a refund. You didn't deliver what you said.
Yep.
So and again, I get asked this all the time too, and we'll, probably have a future show on this crock brain selling formula, but people go, well, you're actually can manipulate people. And I go, no, you can't, because you can grease the skids by implanting things in the brain, but they have free will.
Yeah.
I'm not some kind of magic hypnotic master. Nobody is. Okay. So they still are going through this process. Okay. All I've done is I put science to selling with a crock brain formula, and I have teaching people how to work through the inner dialogue and core desire through the story selling formula, through stories, which, by the way, is the most natural way to sell. You don't have to know how to sell. You don't have to be a sales master. I can teach a 4-year-old, as long as they can talk, they can learn how to tell a story, and they can be great at sales.
Yeah.
Okay? That's how powerful this is.
And if you do that hypnotic bullshit, like I'm going to convince you, blah, blah, blah stuff, strong arming people, and I know people that do that in their business, those people have a 20% plus return rate on their products, which is that's insane. If you're getting 20% return, you can look at one or two things. One, either your product really sucks. But even if you have a good product, it's probably that your messaging really coerced people to take action that they didn't they weren't there. They didn't go through the process like Peter just described. You like strong arm them into doing it. Our return rate on our products is 1%. 1%. Wow. Because I'm not looking for everyone to buy my product. I'm looking for only the right people to buy my product. Right. And I've said this to people before, like I only want to work with people that I can go to the bar, hang out with, and have a drink. And so that's why Guy and I, while yes, I believe in all this, there's a process, and it's really important to learn the process that you take people through. At the end of the day, trying to be someone that you're not, which is why I like your process so much, is because you're not teaching them how to be anything. It's just with your stories, like they're going to connect to you because that's you sharing you, not me, you trying to be. So many people try to be Ryan Dice or try to be Frank Kern or try to be Ilan Ferdman. And then they're like, it doesn't work. I'm like, no shit.
Yeah. Well, no, Ilan, and that's why I said at the very beginning when I talked about J. Conrad Levinson, when he asked, so what's your story? That was my huge aha. I'm different than everyone else. What I bring to the table is different than everyone else, just like you and like everyone else. So, your message to people here today is great. Be yourself. If you want to be in a business for a long time, follow these processes. If you want to be in a business for a short time, do what Ilan said not to do.
Exactly.
That's really going to happen.
Yes, so, you can do the cash grab thing, but our clients, like if someone comes to me and they show me this bullshit, like hypey whatever product, I just flat out tell them, I'm not trying to be an asshole to them, but I'm like, look, it's just, I'm about promoting people that are going to actually make a difference for a long time in this world, that actually care about other people. To me, and maybe you do, but to me, this, whatever you just showed me, does not. This is just like let me make money in the next year or two, and then when this stops making money, I'll come up with some other piece of shit that I can sell you as well. And that, to me, I just don't work with people like that.
Yeah. Well, and nowadays, as you know, especially Ilan, people are their sniffers are very, very good to find those people now. I don't care whether and by the way, guys, I know, we do online stuff. I do offline stuff. In fact, I'm working on a business we're going to start down in San Diego. The thing is, offline, online, this is universal. Why? Because this is universally true as it relates to human condition. Yeah. You can do this anywhere. It doesn't matter what kind of business you have. You don't have to be some online guru like Ilan and Guy. It works if you got a franchise business, you got a restaurant or whatever. It works all over the place. Yeah. All right. So let's go back. We talked. We're just about ready to finish up, come around that circle. Sure. So we got the road back. Now you get them out of the woods. They're going, okay, great. Now going back to Luke Skywalker, let's finish up there. So in Star Wars, in Luke's world, right, the road back, this buyer's remorse is what happens. He meets his Darth Vader, right? He doesn't know it's his father yet, but they have this big battle, right? And Darth Vader cuts off his arm, and then, he hurts Darth Vader, and he's laying on the ground. He goes, Luke, pull off my mask. And he pulls off his mask, and what does he say? He says, Luke, I am your father. Now, what happens? Luke is like super conflicted. He goes, do I kill this guy? He's my dad. He's a bad guy. It's like, so he's having this huge buyer's remorse on, well, yeah, I'm a Jedi Knight. I should kill him. But no, he's my dad. I can't, So he's definitely in the woods. Who's over there on the side spurring him on, right? The evil emperor. Kill him, right? It's like he's trying to get him to, to do what he's, supposed to do, but he's super conflicted until he drops his lightsaber and said, I will not kill you. He's principle based and he comes out of the woods, right? So that's George Lucas's way of the metaphor showing the road back.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, the next and final step is the return with the elixir. Now, the elixir could be, like for Londitz, could be your product. They gain a new level of knowledge they can use and apply that's going to further their status and opportunity gain. It could be a product or service that they buy. It doesn't really matter, but the hero is returning home with this new treasure, okay? And it has the power to transform their status and opportunity. It has the power to deliver the result that will fulfill their core desire. And this is why this is so powerful. Now, what happens is when you return with the elixir, you have an elevated level of knowledge, okay? And you have a new, better known and awareness. And when you have that, this elevation in the human condition, we call wisdom. Okay? So if you think about it, wisdom is like a magnet. I mean, look at all the great people throughout history. You can pick whatever you want. Abraham Lincoln, Gandhi, Jesus Christ. Any person that you admire, what they did is they went through this hero's journey over and over till they got a continued new, known, elevated awareness. With a new, known, elevated awareness was new wisdom, okay? So when you come back to the world with elevated knowledge, you'll continue to go on these hero's journeys, but you'll be a wiser person because of it, because you went through this whole battle, you conquered your inner dialogue, and you achieved your core desire, you came back to community to share, and you fulfilled your gain in status and opportunity. And I'm telling you guys, if you look at this and go through something like this in a workshop format and you come out with these set of stories, the best and most powerful thing is once you learn this formula, you can start creating stories on the fly. I can talk to anybody on a street corner. I can ask a few simple questions, kind of find out what their core desire and inner dialogue and say, hey, you know what? Here's the thing. We'll put it this way, Ilan, just so everybody can hear how powerful this is. If I want to get your attention, you know what I do? I just go, hey, Ilan, can I ask you a question? You go, sure. Right? So now it's a brain freezer, right? It's called crock brain. I've got your attention. I go, hey, you know what? So I ask you some questions and you tell me, for instance, if I said, hey, Ilan, in your business, I know you got a really successful business, but if you had like you and your brother really wanted to take it to the next level, if you could do that, what would that be?
Well, the game that we're playing right now is to actually scale our business through different media agency, like much, much larger media agency side. And our goal is basically to spend personally $250,000 of our own money per month on media buying.
Okay, awesome. So, let me ask you this. Can I ask you another question?
Sure.
So I bet you and your brother talk about this quite a bit, don't you?
Yeah.
And I bet you think about it at night before you go to sleep, don't you?
Yes.
So see, there's your inner dialogue. That's a core desire. Now what do I say? I say, hey, Ilan, I've got a story to share you about a guy I know that's kind of doing the same thing you're doing. You want to hear it?
Absolutely.
And you're going to go, yep, I do. And there you go. Now, you see, this is I just gave you guys a how-to right there, what we teach. But you ask these brain freezer questions, you can determine inner dialogue and core desire pretty fast and pretty easily by striking up a conversation. And then you learn how to create these stories on the fly to at least get attention. Because if I had a story that related to somebody that was doing something like you, you'd probably go, I'd like to do you know who that guy is? Could I talk to him?
Yeah.
I got your attention. You see, now we go through that process of the Herald story, right? The call to adventure, the transformation story, the ownership story, all the way through. So basically, they make a mental purchase prior to them making a physical purchase, and this is how powerful this is.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I really, guys, when are you launching the product, by the way, Peter?
The product actually is launched. We're going through our first inaugural beta workshop here this next week. So if they want to get in, they should do so fairly quickly because I've got limited seats. I don't want to have a ton of people in
Sure. There. Is there a link we can provide to the listeners? And I'll put it in the resource guide, but do you want to just say like where they can go find this?
Yeah, if they go, I've tried to make it as short as possible. It's a bit.ly link. So if they do BIT period or .ly, so it's B as in boy, I as in India, T as in Tom, L as in Larry, Y as in yellow, and then / and then it's all one word, get story selling. So GET, then the word story, STORY, and then selling, SELLING.
Perfect.
And what we're going to do in that class, it's a 6-week course, Ilan, and I'm going to take them through week by week. They first start with defining their angel avatars, repelling the devils. They'll do their sales magnet story. Then they do their Herald story, their transformation story, and their ownership blueprint story. So when they come out of this thing, not only are they interacting with me one-on-one online, but they're developing a whole set of stories. And then in the 6th week, it's our bonus week. I'm putting it all together to show them how they can use these stories online, offline, in print, and also how to create stories on the fly. Kind of like what I was just giving you a taste of.
Awesome. Now, just I'm sure some listeners are thinking, is this live? Is this recorded? How is this delivered?
The workshop actually is live. So every week we'll get on. I teach. They'll learn. I assign the homework. They come back the next week. I'll even have, for the people who are right on top of the ball, the first few people that send theirs in will probably take a look at a couple, 2, 3 stories in the upcoming week, and I'll do a kind of like a hot seat critique so they can get an idea of, okay, here's what this person wrote. Here was Peter's suggestions on how to make it just a little bit better.
Awesome. Yeah. So guys, I highly recommend if you're doing anything in and around business, like your own business, this is one of the most powerful skills you can ever develop. I'll definitely leave the link for them to get that. Other than that, where else can they get in touch with you, Peter?
They can go to, there's a lot of, which you probably did on the Cell Effect, there's a lot of free information at Croc Brain. It's CROC, not with a K. Yep. CROC as in cat, brain.com. I've got a lot of good videos. There's good articles up there. There's the Cell Effect book if you want to get that for free that Ilan read. But it's a way for you to get on my list. I do free worldwide webinars every couple of weeks just so you guys can learn. I teach a lot of skills. Because, guys, here's the thing. Ilan and I, we've built businesses. And, the biggest thing that always ticked me off was everyone would tell you what to do, but they wouldn't tell you how to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm telling people, here's how you do these things. If you want to build $1 million a year or more business, because I built now 4 of them, $2 to $8 million, these are the things, this is how you do it. And this is the mindset that you have.
Yeah. And more than that, I think this is where you called it, people are starting to sniff things out. I think the internet was so young in the early 2000s that you can, throw anything up against the wall, it would stick and people would buy it and you could make money. Today, both from the advertising side, as far as like Google slapping people and Facebook trying to clean up their act. So you have that to deal with. But I also believe that people are getting smarter and they're getting more jaded. And they don't believe anything. And it's we've said this on plenty of masterminds and podcasts. The hardest sell to make today is the first one. It's never been harder. We're the most marketed to people in history. I saw stats somewhere that I think we see about on average, 3,500 advertisements a day, which is just astounding. So the bullshit meter, right, is constantly going off and letting very few things in. this is the thing that will differentiate you in the next 5 years. This is where business is going. And I see this happening not only in business, but I think in politics, this is what's going to shift. I think in corporate America, I think we're just done buying people's BS. We need real people who can share themselves that we can relate to. So this is the skill set, period. So I'm really glad that you shared this. And if you guys want to get on the beta, please go do that now. All right, let's finish with this, Peter. I have one question I always ask people, and it's that old cliche, if I only knew then what I know now. So given that you've had so much life experience and business experience, what's something you wish you would have known, 20, 30 or whatever years ago that would have made a profound difference in the way that you live your life?
That's a great question, Ilan. And I will tell you, this kind of goes back to what Ilan had said earlier in the podcast or in the call, and that is acting. I mean, everybody has this little internal, your intuition, and I've learned to follow my gut a lot more. But I will tell you guys, the more that you act in the face of fear, the easier and more successful your life will be. The fear is I'm telling you guys, right? We all heard of false expectations appearing real. Fear is the only thing that is the difference between you now in your ordinary world and you possessing the elixir to gain that status and opportunity. So if you can figure out a way to overcome those fears, watch what happens in your life. Yeah,
it's so brilliant. We say this thing all the time that Guy and I think it was, we took a course, I think when we were 23, 21 respectively, and we shifted fear, exactly like you said, into a guide, almost like a heat-seeking missile. And whatever we were afraid of, that's what we went and did, because we knew that and it's so funny. It's like whenever someone overcomes a fear, everyone wants to feel elated and magical and joyful and fulfilled. And then you just ask them, it's like, when did you feel that? And you put them into an instance where they overcame some sort of fear. That's exactly how you feel. You feel the best you've ever felt in that moment. And so we're like, well, you want to feel more of that, just go conquer more of your fears. And every time you go through, you just get to know yourself as that much bigger of a person, and then that allows you to take bigger action, which ultimately leads you to bigger results and the life, quote unquote, that everyone dreams of. So I think it's awesome that's what you said.
The fear thing, Ilan, what I learned this a long time ago when I was a younger fella, in my late 20s, early 30s, and that is in product development. Tom Peters would always talk about fail fast, fail often, right? We did rapid prototyping. But the thing is, you can apply this to your life. If you fail fast and fail often, the failures are really small.
Yep.
But if you wait, you build that failure in your head to be this monumental thing, and now you can't get over it. See, you were mentioning things. There's one other thing I want to share with people. Not that I'm some big guru guy, but guys, I don't want you to go through the same thing I've gone through, and that is when you get over, if you fail fast and fail often, there's this thing called Big Mo. And Big Mo is momentum. And when you get momentum going in your business or in your life and it goes past critical mass, holy smokes, it becomes so much easier. I mean, there's different ways to identify Big Mo. Big Mo could be, I have this tribe of evangelistic followers. I've got 100,000 people, and no matter what I put out to them, it has to be good and it's got to be ethical, but bam, there goes the cash register. That's Big Mo. Yeah. Right? So you go through these things, but you got to get to a point where you get beyond this fear so you can develop Big Mo. And
that's 100%. Awesome. Peter, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your wisdom. Definitely want to have you back on to have more of these geek out on neuromarketing and crack brain and all that stuff. As my listeners know, I'm just obsessed with it. But for now, let's say thank you and have an amazing, amazing day.
Thank you, Ilan. I really appreciate the opportunity. It was wonderful.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Performance Enhancing Podcast. We've taken this pep talk and created a custom action guide so you know exactly what action steps to take now to grow your business. Just head over to satoriprime.com/podcast and download it for free. Also, please leave a comment and rate this podcast on iTunes. It'll help us get the word out. Thanks for listening. Now, go and implement. We'll see you next time.